Hi, Nick here with AIBC. We have Miss Forma here with me from Solidus Labs. Delphine Forma, it's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I love the space. It's very cool over here, so I'm really happy.
Go. You're here. You're a policy expert. As far you're here at the moment, and you're here working to train our institutions in your software, right? With Solidus Labs, working on, I guess, the ideas harmonization of regulation around the world, MICA, etc.
Exactly. So, yes, I'm head of policy at Solidus Labs. And at Solidus Labs, we provide market surveillance systems. And we were here yesterday to train the MFSA, Law Enforcement Agency, FIU, MGA on our software, but most on market abuse in crypto. So, what are the typologies? How do you detect it? Or do you prevent it? And on my side, because I'm head of policy, I was talking about global regulation and putting MICA in the context of global regulation, because MICA is just a piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, crypto is global and digital. So you can't just look at one piece of regulation. I think it's important for everybody to have like an understanding of the context and to be able to compare, because we are in Malta and I'm sure they know the regulation well. I mean, like the MFSA know MICA very well, probably better than me. So I thought it would be interesting also to, give them more about the knowledge about the global regulatory framework. But also, not only am the head of policy of Solidus Labs, but I have two podcasts. So one is called MICA Master, and I interview chief compliance and legal officers and regulators. And the other one is called Compliance Champions, when I interview chief compliance and legal officer and regulator around the globe. And today I released an episode with the BMI, the Bermuda Monetary Authority.
Great. And in these conversations with regulators, etc., some interesting facts that you found. Are you allowed to tell? I guess you tell them on your podcast anyway. Tell them to us.
I think you should listen to the podcast. But no, basically in the podcast, I ask them to talk about the regulatory framework applicable, to explain to my listener what should they do to apply for a license. I give them tips about best practices or to engage with the regulator, what you need to do, what should not be done. So it's really about that. But the behind the scenes usually have like a different, conversation about what they can say publicly and what they cannot say publicly, which obviously I'm not going to share.
I'm meeting a lot of people who are working on their MiCA compliance, almost there. This idea of this goalpost that's open, that represents the openness of a new market, new frontier, first mover advantage. I guess you've seen a lot of people kind of move the whole way through the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, like most of our clients, they are going through this process right now. I think like MiCA is a really important regulation in the sense that it will give you access to 30 countries. So I think this is one of the only framework in the world that give you access with one license to a full, a lot of people, great big market. But it's obviously very complicated. I mean, like the history behind it and why I'm saying it's a very mind-blowing regulation is like before, if you wanted to operate in the EU as a crypto asset provider, so an exchange, broker, dealer, custody, whatever, you will need to have a license in every country of the EU if you wanted to target customers there directly. Option B would be to rely on reverse solicitation. But that's, it was okay, but it's a very tricky move. And no, when you are applying for a license in country A, you will apply for getting a MiCA license, and then you can passport it across the European Economic Area. So EU 27 plus 3. And this is amazing as a business and also from a compliance point of view, it's very difficult to navigate a lot of regulatory framework. And for once, you have one framework applicable. But it comes with a lot of challenges because you have MiCA, principle based, and then you have all the level two text. So technical standards, implementation technical standards, and then it interacts with other regulation. You have the transfer of fund regulation. It's more well known on travel rule. You have DORA for everything dealing with cybersecurity, IT, and this is a huge piece. Then you have the AMLDs and the future AML regulation. So I always call it as a millfire of regulation. And also, when you get your license, this is not what is the most difficult part. The most difficult part is to maintain your license and also make sure that you live with it. What you say in your policies, you need to apply it. You can't just like, oh, well, no, it's done. Let's operate and we don't care about anything anymore. No, I think the real work really starts when you have to leave your policy and make sure you can maintain your license.
I know it's not your specific area of expertise, um, but do you think it's going to be quite difficult for companies in the iGaming niche, etc., to comply in this regard? To we can get the license, but to so many potential clients, so many transactions. I mean, things can go wrong, right?
So actually, I had a conversation in the car to here with MFSA. I was asking him question about e-gaming because this is not my main area of competence and I'm not super knowledgeable about it. And I was asking him like, but how does company operate in the e-gaming space? Do you need a license to do gaming? You do not need a license. And he was saying to me, well, it's very fragmented. So in some jurisdiction you will need a license. In other jurisdiction you do not need a license. And also, apparently, the authorities responsible for supervision of the gaming industry, they don't have channels of communication like we have in financial services. And it also really depends on your business model. So I find that really interesting. But I would say that if you're an e-gaming company and you want to provide payments and or transfer of stable coins, so you want to be able to allow your customer to send you stablecoin, and then they will use the stablecoin in your ecosystem. If you want to do that, you will need a license, and not only you will need a MICA license, but you will also need a payment license.
Okay. Well, someone's obviously doing it. I just got blown away today by the figures, like a trillion in turnover in stablecoins are at this point, you know. So it looks to be something that is firmly there. All this legislation, everything is created, but it's not just something that's going to fade away. This is building on the future.
Oh, of course, stablecoin is here to stay. It's not going to disappear. I think stablecoin is really what made like crypto more out there, right? Because the stablecoin is have a stable value, right? So if I give you $1 and the stable coin represents this $1 and I can redeem it for the price I pay, one to one, right? And it's used to transact internationally. There is no border. I can send you, let's say you're in Mauritius and you have a wallet, I can send you money and no one is taking fees unless just the network on which it's traveling, right?
Do you think some of these stable coins might disappear when I guess, the central bank currency becomes digital, etc.?
I don't think so. I think there is place for everyone and there is different use cases, right? You have wholesales, stable use for wholesales, and then you have more use for retail customer and like interbank. There's a lot of different use cases. And I think the CBDC will really happen. I'm actually not so sure. But to come back to the question, will some stablecoin disappear? Possibly yes. Like, I mean, we already see today that you have like leaders, which are USDT and USDC. And what is interesting is like USDT is not regulated anywhere, right? But I think this is going to be more complicated for stablecoin issuers to actually being able to operate globally without being regulated. In the US, no, you have the Genius Act. In Europe, you have MICA. In Hong Kong, the HKME released guidelines, and no, you need to have a license in Hong Kong too. Singapore is the same. South Korea is getting on it. In Japan, it's there for 2 years. So I think it's going to be extremely difficult if you're not regulated to be able to provide your services. But it comes with a lot of challenges because if you're a stablecoin, the goal is to be global, right? It's global and digital. You want to be your stablecoin to be used globally. But you need to comply with all sorts of regulations that are different, like regarding the reserve, what your reserve look like. They need to be composed by 95% of liquid assets, maybe 5% you can take a little bit of risk. They need to be custody in a bank. They need to be custody in there's so many things behind it that you need to think about. It gets very complicated.
We look forward to a more in-depth discussion upon the complications at some point in the future. Delphine, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Great. Delphine Forez from Solidus Labs, and Nicholas signing off from AIBC. Thank you.